But we're going to start with the game in the Motor City, which was a really good game. I enjoyed it. I was sitting on my ass watching the game. Game 6, the Detroit basketball and the New Yorkers, the Pistons, looking to force a Game 7. The Knickerbockers trying to close things out and move on to take on that green team. Were you watching? Well, I hope you were. This was actually a pretty good game. It came down to the final seconds with the clock running down. Jaylen Brunson, the killer crossover dribble between his legs. He got a little space, and then the dagger from downtown, a three-point shot with 4.3 seconds left on the clock. And then he blew a kiss right there to the upper balcony. The crowd had been taunting him. That's what good fans do. They taunt the best player on the other team. And so they did. Now, Brunson had a 40-burger in this game, 40 points, and the Knicks win the game by 3. And what a great way for the Pistons season to end. They didn't even get a shot up. They fudged the ball out of bounds. Beasley fumbled the ball out of bounds. So Detroit could have had a chance to tie the game, and they blew it. And so the win goes to the team from the Big Apple, New York. Will now face the number 2 seed. That would be
number 2.
The Boston basketball team, as they look to advance to the Eastern Conference Finals. You realize the Knicks have not been to the Eastern Conference Finals since 2000? That's a generation. How is that? Man, when I was growing up, I'm old, back in my day, but it was like, oh, New York teams have all the advantage. Those New York teams win all the time. They have all the top players. You realize, like, the Jets have been terrible. The Giants are an embarrassment. The Knickerbockers are pathetic. Like, for the most part, the Mets are ridiculously bad. The Mets haven't won the World Series since the 1980s. Ronald Reagan was the president the last time the Knicks won, or the Mets won the World Series. The Yankees, they're going on how many years? It's been 15 years plus now. The Yankees haven't won the World Series. So who goofed? I've got to know. Anyway, let's get back to this one. Now, the better story isn't the losing locker room. We'll get to that, but I wanted to start with this. All right, so as we discuss this game, since the Knicks won and everyone has their pants down because of Jaylen Brunson, can you put into context Jaylen Brunson's game-winning basket for the Knicks? So I've got Meme-tastic, F-17 Nighthawk, and Kentucky Bourbon. And we will combine all of these things together, and we're going to say, forget about it. Just have some Detroit pizza. I didn't even know Detroit pizza was a thing until a few years ago. I didn't. I had no idea. It was Detroit. I knew Chicago style. I knew New York style pizza. I didn't even know there was a Detroit style pizza until a couple years ago. And then all of a sudden, it was like everywhere. All right, so my first thought on this, I guess we'll say number
1.
Can I get a number?
Number 1.
All right. Enough of that. All right, so my first thought is Baywatch, as in Jaylen Brunson was the lifeguard who saved the Knicks from themselves. Complete shambles for the Knicks. They were drowning. The Knickerbockers were drowning. It looked early on they were going to blow out the Pistons. They were up, I think, 15. I jotted that down on my little notes app. They were up 15 early on, and then the Pistons came back, and then the Knicks went ahead again, and then it was a little bit of back and forth game. But facing a do-or-die Game 7, Jaylen Brunson had to rescue his teammates from sinking into the deep blue sea of Lake Michigan. All right, it was bad. It was bad. And the Pistons were on their way to a historical possible comeback in Game 7. Detroit was leading this by 7 points with 2:35 to go. That's not insurmountable, but you're up by 7 with 2.5 minutes to go. You're in pretty good shape unless Doc Rivers is your coach. Doc Rivers was not coaching the Pistons. But Jaylen Brunson, I didn't know they had this on the bench, but he put his cape on down the stretch. Nerves of steel. And that dagger, the crossover to get some space, and then the knockdown three-point shot was meme-tastic. Jaylen Brunson went Twilight Zone. You're a bad man. You're a very bad man, Jaylen Brunson, with that shot. And it was chest-thumping, kissing, blowing kisses up to the upper deck. Some jabroni up there. It was a good time. And it is a reminder that one big shot or a couple of big shots cover up a lot of bad shots. Jaylen Brunson took 14 shots in the fourth quarter. He only made 4 of them. However, it's the last shot, obviously, that people will remember. They'll talk about, hey, remember Jaylen Brunson beat the Pistons in a playoff game on the road with that three-point shot? They're not going to say he went 4 of 14 in the fourth quarter. But when they were down, when Detroit had a 7-point lead, in really good shape there, in the final couple minutes of the game, Jaylen Brunson was 3 of 5 floor, 8 points in the comeback. New York outscored Detroit 11-3 to close out the game and turn out the lights. The party's over for the Pistons. Now, speaking of that, the better story is in the losing locker room, so we're going to go there now. Despite the loss, I have been seeing a number of headlines, number of stories, number of posts on the socials with tributes pouring in that the social media world eulogizing the Pistons' performance, but celebrating that the Motown Hoopers, who had not broken 25 wins in the last 5 seasons, they jumped all the way up from 14-68 to 44-38. They were the 6th seed in the Eastern Conference. The consensus among popular people, the pundits, is that Detroit is now set up. They've arrived. They're a force in the Eastern Conference for years to come. They're good to go. They're good to go. All right? So that's the consensus. So I ask the esteemed panel, which you are a part of, are you convinced? Are you convinced? You make the call. Are you convinced that the Cade Cunningham Pistons have arrived? So after a minutes-long deliberation, I am shaking my head no again on this one. I'm shaking my head no. This is a stinger. There was venom. There was venom there. Now, there are good signs. I'm not going to sit here and say there's no good signs. There were good signs. However, the finished product is not there, and there are no moral victories, at least not here. Maybe some other people like to give those out. But the Knickerbockers, if I'm Detroit, I'm spitting mad. The Knickerbockers should have lost this series, right? They were plump for the taking. Detroit blew this series. And again, most games are lost, they're not won. We talk about that all the time. And this is a great example. Down the stretch, 4 straight games were decided by 3 points or less. 3 of them were Detroit basketball home losses. They lost at home by 2 points, by 1 point, by 3 points. Now, the big picture, the Pistons, if you look at that turnaround from 14 wins to 44 wins year to year, the Pistons have been, the last year, the F-17 Nighthawk. And that's what they were certainly during the regular season this year, where they flew below the radar. They were not detected by any radar. And you don't just pick up where you left off. You have to start fresh. And so they go back and to the very bottom and have to push the rock back up the mountain. It's kind of like you're playing a video game and in the old days, and then the power goes out and you've got to start over. It doesn't save it. You got to go back to the very beginning, which is not ideal. All right, now, final point. To the Jaylen Brunson Knickerbockers, as they now have a chance, or do they have a chance, to upend the Celtics? That's how we're going to frame this. Do the Jaylen Brunson Knicks have a chance to upend the Celtics? Boston with home court advantage. Boston, the championship pedigree from a year ago, all that nonsense. So do the Knicks have a chance? So I look at this for the Knickerbockers. It's not ideal, but it is Kentucky bourbon. It is a puncher's chance. It is a puncher's chance. Okay, and the Celtics dominated the Knicks in their 4 regular season meetings. They won all 4 games. There was only one of them that was close, but you can't really base too much of that because certain star players don't play, and so not everyone was out there, and whatever you were back in November and December, obviously you know you're not the same team. Things get better or worse. They don't stay the same. Now, the big red flag for the Knickerbockers, they played 9 games against the top teams, Boston, Cleveland, and Oklahoma City. 9 games. Out of those 9 games, how many did they win? The answer would be as many as you and I and Lorena and Coop and Blind Emmett. 0 for 9, the Knickerbockers against Boston, Cleveland, and Oklahoma City, which obviously raises questions about the fraud nature of the Knickerbockers. Now, fortunately, I cannot stress this enough. Past results do not guarantee future outcomes. Boston's reliance on three-point shooting is a blessing and a curse. Because when the threes are not falling, they struggle. They can still win. They beat Orlando in a game. They didn't make a three-point shot in half. But it's much more difficult. You've also got Jaylen Brown, who's a ticking time bomb with a knee that's all wonky. You've got Porzingis, who's made out of glass most of the time. And in game one, there's an opportunity to sneak in there and steal game one. The Knicks have played and played and played. The Celtics, you talk about the old debate, we have it every year. Rust versus rest. It's a football debate normally, but rust versus rest. So the Celtics have been off for a number of days. The Knicks just played here on Thursday night. So they should be ready to pounce at the beginning of the game. Now, for the Knicks, another problem is Karl Anthony Towns. Kitty Cat, Karl Anthony Towns, is in position physically to dominate. He often does not. He often is a spectator when he's on the court. He doesn't normally move the needle in playoff games. At least he doesn't do back-to-back games. And you never know from game to game how Karl Anthony Towns is going to play. That's been the curse going back to his days in Minnesota. It hasn't changed with the Knickerbockers. And you know Jaylen Brunson's the real deal, and he'll get some numbers, and he'll put up some good stats and all that. So would I bet on the Knicks? I wouldn't bet on the Knicks. Do I think this is going to be a sweep by the Celtics? I would be very surprised. This has 6-game series, and the Celtics will lose a game. They shouldn't lose early on. They'll lose a game at the Garden, but they'll end up the Madison Square Garden. Both teams playing the Garden, but they'll end up winning in the end.